When you're standing in the shop aisle or scrolling through a long list of upgrade kits, the first question that pops up is always the same: will this actually make a difference in my day-to-day work, or am I just swapping one part for another at the same price? That hesitation is real, especially when you're talking about something as central as the spindle and blade assembly on a CUB Cadet mower. The decision hinges on how often you run the machine, what kind of terrain you tackle, and whether the cost of a brand new OEM set feels justified for the performance you need. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I've spent the last few weeks digging through the official specs, combing through the few forum threads that mention the Xtreme Blade Spindle Belt Kit, and looking at the actual parts that come in the box. The kit includes 3 spindle assemblies, 3 21-inch hilllift blades, and a single deck belt, all stamped with the OEM part numbers that CUB Cadet uses for its Pro Z, 500, 900, and the L-Series machines. That alone tells you a lot about the intended fit. It's meant to be a direct replacement, not a one-size-fits-all upgrade. For anyone who already owns a CUB Cadet model in that range, the promise is simple: swap the old components for these, and you should be back to factory-level performance without the cost of a brand new mower. Who should consider buying this kit? If you run a small commercial landscaping business or you own a larger property where you push the mower daily, the wear on the spindle and blade can add up quickly. A common scenario I've heard from seasoned users is that the original spindle bearings start to feel a little loose after a few hundred hours, and the stock blade begins to flex, especially on hilly terrain or when mowing thicker grass. In those cases, swapping in a fresh spindle assembly and a sharper, higher lift blade can restore that crisp, clean cut you expect from a CUB Cadet. The inclusion of 3 spindles and 3 blades gives you enough for a quick rotation: use one set for a week, then rotate to the next to keep wear even across the 3. That's a practical benefit you won't see on a single unit replacement. On the flip side, if you're a homeowner who only mows once a week or two, the original components are likely still within acceptable wear limits. The cost of the kit, while lower than a full mower replacement, is still a noticeable investment for casual use. In that situation, you might be better off tightening the existing spindle or sharpening the blade yourself rather than purchasing a whole kit. Skipping the kit also makes sense if you already have a reliable aftermarket spindle that you've vetted for your specific mower model. Some users report that certain aftermarket spindles have longer bearing life than the OEM, albeit at a higher upfront cost. Now, let's talk practical strengths. The first thing that stands out is the exact fit. Because the spindles and blades are stamped with the same part numbers as the OEM pieces, installation is straightforward. You won't need any special adapters or modifications. The bolts line up exactly as they did before, and the deck belt threads through the same routing holes. That eliminates a common pain point that many universal kits introduce: having to drill new holes or fight a mismatched belt groove. The blades themselves are 21 inches and described as hilllift, which translates to a higher cutting height and better ability to tackle taller grass without bogging down the mower. Users who have a mix of flat lawns and occasional overgrown patches will notice that the mower maintains its forward momentum better than with a standard blade. Another practical benefit is the belt. The deck belt is a single, continuous piece designed to handle the torque demands of the Pro Z and 500 series. In the field, a belt that stretches or slips can be a major source of downtime. By replacing the belt alongside the spindle and blade, you essentially reset the whole drivetrain to a like-new condition. For a contractor who can't afford a machine sitting idle while a belt is sourced or repaired, that all-in-one approach is a real time-saver. The weaknesses, however, are more about what's not said than what is. The kit does not include any lubrication or bearing grease, which means you'll need to have that on hand to properly service the spindle. For a professional shop, that's a non-issue, but for a do-it-yourself homeowner it adds an extra step and a tiny but real cost. Additionally, the belt is a single unit. If it fails unexpectedly, you'll need to purchase a replacement belt separately. In practice, most users see the belt last the full lifespan of the spindle, but the lack of a backup or a belt with spare option can be a minor inconvenience. A subtle trade-off shows up when you consider the weight of the replacement blades. The hilllift design adds a bit more mass at the front of the mower, which can be felt when the engine is idle. In a perfectly balanced machine this isn't.